so tired. I'm so tired.
Has it been a day? Has it been a weekend? Oh,
It's been a day. Anyway, okay, as you know, this is the measure of an episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek genuine Star Trek and not just
more Star Trek.
Star Trek with a Transformer vibe, you know?
Oh,
Transformers.
Interesting. I was actually going to say this is not unique to Star Trek. Sorry. This is not unique in Star Trek, but it is unique to Star Trek, I'm pretty sure. Like this kind of general plot. But we do this with 3 criteria. The first one is there sci-fi that is required for the plot to work? Is that sci-fi presented in a unique or novel fashion? And is there a moral or ethical dilemma that a character must face? I'm tired.
And I'm Jonathan. And this week, we watched Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 6, Lost in Translation.
Which there were so many subtle callbacks, which I loved. I mean, it's one of the, like, Metamorphosis, that episode.
Which we've seen.
Yeah.
That I forgot.
Yeah. Until they made the callback to it. Anyway, so what's the voice to text blurb?
I actually forgot to do it.
Oh, dang it. All right.
So you need to do it. So you need to try and do a bad reading of it.
Okay.
Let's give the blurb.
All right. I'm so curious how much of this are you deleting? Uhura seems to be the only one who can hear a strange sound. When the noise triggers terrifying hallucinations, she enlists an unlikely assistant to help her track down the source.
Unlikely assistant. Oh, it's right.
Kirk. Yeah.
Unlikely assistant. I was expecting Picard, to be honest.
I know. Yeah, I think you actually said that last time. Yeah, unlikely assistant. Is that what it said? Unlikely assistant. That doesn't.
Well, here's the thing. I totally forgot that Kirk hasn't been on the ship yet.
Oh, I know. So every time he's introducing himself, I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, why is this happening?" Yeah.
They didn't, and that wasn't in the what do you call it when you remind people at the beginning of the episode, the recap. Recap. We're so good at this.
That's really gonna be hard to detail though. Like where you'd have to have the flashback where Kirk was on the Enterprise, but then you'd have to actually show the transition that was suggested at the end of that episode that he wasn't ever on the ship. You know?
Yeah, it's very confusing. I guess we just have to be good watchers. We can't have everything handed to us.
I mean, just that in particular. Like, I don't know, because that was actually well done in the episode where they showed him on the Enterprise, and then they went back to the reality where he had never been on the Enterprise, and we had to put those 2 pieces together, and it's very hard to give 2 pieces to put together in a recap.
A little journey through the recap of discovery of the Kirk character. Yeah, I agree. I think that we were not being responsible viewers of the show. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But I was disoriented. I was like, what? Like, what? You've never been on? Like, I'm trying to, because like we've seen Kirk so much now. And I was like, who are you?
Yeah.
What's your name?
And then when Kirk and Pike, the time that threw me off the most was when Kirk and Pike shook hands. No, the 2 times. Kirk and Pike shook hands, and when he came on, and he's like, that's a hell of a ship. I'm like, do you say that every time you come on here? Like, why are you saying that now? I never get over it. I just want to jump all over the place with this episode. So I will follow your lead, but
okay. Well, the first thing that happens to me, first of all, I don't know how I feel about this episode. I don't know how I feel about it because so many things I don't like are in it, but so many things that I do like. I want you to start thinking it through the course of this. I have a little game to play. What was your favorite moment in this episode? What was the favorite thing? It was like, oh, I could watch that again. That was nice. That was a nice little, oh, hey, they thought about something.
I feel like we're playing the game Read My Mind, Paul. Like you want me to find what you thought was like that the most.
Well, there's the best one, which is the one that I have come up with. But obviously. I would like for you to have your own as well, so I can make fun of it later. Okay. But anyway, so this is not that moment, but there's a moment where, I hate this in all movies. Where someone gets a phone call, and we are not privy to the other side of this conversation on the phone call. And they pick up this receiver, or they touch the button on the Bluetooth thing, like Uhura's Bluetooth, whatever thing. And maybe 1 second goes by. She's like, hello. That'd be great if she did that on the Enterprise. Hello? And then Uhura proceeds to recount what was told to her, which takes 15 seconds. Like, does she leave her podcast app open and it's like on 3 speed or something like that, where she heard? Like, how did she get all this information in such a little amount of time? Maybe that's why she's so talented.
Yeah.
That's why she's on the Enterprise, the flagship. As
People
it were.
just talk in shorthand to her.
Like, what? Yeah. Well, why can't? I love to hear that shorthand is. Yeah, I just send her an email. Like, she got an email. She got a notification, it popped up on her screen.
Right. And then she can speed read it. Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you need to do it because we can't sit around waiting for it. It'd be great if the amount of time that she's listening also elapsed as she's telling it, if they did that kind of detail.
Well, so I do feel like the original series actually had that pretty well, because most of the time there would be other dialogue going on before she interrupted and said, "Captain, I'm getting an incoming message of blah, blah, blah." So she could have been receiving that information while the other dialogue is happening. And in most shows, they do cheat that. You're right.
Yeah, or she's just, she's heard it all before, and she cuts them off after 2 seconds. Like, yeah, I know what's going on. Right. Kind of like you do to me on Voxer. Like, you think you get the gist, and you're like, all right, I'm just going to say okay.
Yeah, like 20 seconds in a 3-minute message. I'm like, anyway. Yeah. TLD, DL.
Right. So anyway, that it didn't get me off on the right foot of this episode.
The other one, just to go down this rabbit hole just for a minute, is where the person is clearly waiting right next to the door when they knock or ring the doorbell.
Yeah, they're always right there. Exactly.
Right. There's no time between knocking or ringing the doorbell and the person answers.
Right. And then Uhura gets a call from Optimus Prime and starts talking to her. And I was like, why is the sound so familiar? I'm like, oh, right. It's the Transformers sound. Do you like those movies? Those Michael Bay movies?
I did not think of that until you said that, but that is 100% what it is.
Right. That's all I could think about when I heard it, too. I was like, Autobots. Yeah. And then Kirk comes on. He comes on board fairly quickly in the episode. He's on board almost immediately. And I noticed, did you notice this? Where he comes on board and his transporter sound was so effing loud. I thought that I accidentally hit the dial on my computer sound. And then I turned it down. I was like, whoa, this is so loud. And then their voices were super soft. Like somebody left the transporter sound too loud.
Well, if you remember so I actually had the sound off for the first 10 minutes and I was just reading the subtitles. I wasn't able to listen to the sound. But if you remember, I remember the scene, and the perspective was right over Kirk's shoulders. So it kind of makes sense that the transporter noise was so loud because we were right in the middle of the transporter.
It'd be great if all of the people who go through transporting, they wear earplugs because it's such a loud experience.
Right. Or it's kind of like it would actually be kind of fun to do a scene where it is kind of an emergency transport and we stay with the character. I know there's the episode where Barclay has a hard time transporting and it turns out that there's captured souls in the transporter. One of the weakest Next Generation episodes, but it'd be kind of fun where they're in the middle of a battle or they're being chased by something and they have to do that emergency evacuation and they're doing kind of that blanket transport where the person is running or just lying on the ground. And we follow that person being transported from wherever they are into the sickbay or something.
Yeah, they would have to be doing something, and they were kind of transported against their will or without their knowledge, right?
Right. It's one of those, beam up everything in that 20-yard radius.
Right. Or when we decided that, or we discovered that you can kind of rearrange people in the transport because people are sitting, and so we thought,
waking them up
could
running.
you?
Yep.
Yeah. From a dead sleep into a full-out run.
Oh, man.
Another way, so if you could do that, let's say you can do that, you should be able to do the other way around, which is you can transport them from doing something into just a deep sleep.
Right. From a dead run into...
Which is less funny. But it has implications medically.
Right. Well, I mean, you could...
Insomnia.
And given the fact that you can... do a site-to-site transport. then in theory, there's no arguing against doctor's orders of getting rest. Like he can just transport you to bed asleep.
And I like the over it doctor.
Right.
You know, he's become jaded and complacent, and he doesn't take any shit from anybody anymore. He's like, I want you to take some leave and take a nap. They're like, no, I will not. He's like,
right.
Yes.
Yeah, wish to tie back. Like I did like the fact that Nurse Chapel actually commented on that. Like apparently everybody ignores the orders in doctor's orders.
Right, exactly. That was nice.
Right.
Nice. We got a little bit of Nurse Chapel and Spock. I liked that. I'm glad that they addressed that we didn't just get on to the next episode after this huge thing happened in the previous episode.
So for me, this was one of my highlights of the episode. Not a rewatch, but I did like the fact that like the whole Schrodinger's cat to explain quantum physics is actually from a paper that was talking about how people use something as ridiculous as Schrodinger's cat to explain quantum physics. Like it's not an actual analogy for it. And they even addressed that in this episode. So I thought that was very cool. Like, because I actually started to roll my eyes like when it happened. I was like, guys, Schrodinger's cat is not a proper explanation. And then they said that.
Right. Yeah, that was nice. Yeah. And I think that they seem to have done their homework on this show because, as you said, there's a lot of Easter eggs that I probably missed a lot of them. But,
well, just speaking about the Metamorphosis one, when they were talking about how this alien race, you know, like all alien races have generic descriptions for like emotions and actions or something like that. You know, she says that's how the universal translator works, and that's how Spock explained it in Metamorphosis, which I thought was pretty cool.
And we commented on that, I remember.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, it's not just it's super fast at learning a language. It's somehow interpreting brain signals and shit.
Right.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
We get a little bit more information. So we have 2 episodes now in the 900,000 episodes or hours of Star Trek actually explaining what the universal translator does.
You know, that's some pretty good percentages right there.
Yeah. I really don't want us to know about it. It's a slow burn on that one.
Well, yeah, and I mean, even those 2 episodes are almost 60 years apart. So
right. So jumping ahead a little bit.
Okay.
On the episode.
Can I
once again?
Before you do, can I go way back?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so when Ortegas was talking about ripping a donut into the nebula, I thought that it was kind of referencing cars and how like they can circle donuts, you know, when they like do their fancy driving around. But then I started thinking about it more, and I think that what she was talking about was like when the ship goes through the cloud, it's going to create that circular donut shape, you know. And so it was a nice little slang for something that we don't really do.
Yeah, and it kind of is informative as to Ortega's character.
Yeah,
that she seems to be kind of like a greaser. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like her hobby. You know,
right.
Like she likes cars and likes driving cars, and she kind of
she's watching Jurassic Park. Yeah.
Yeah. She seems like to be a 20th century, I guess, file.
File. Yeah. Yeah.
Be a 20th century phobe. I said that. It's like talked about Jurassic Park. Ugh. Ugh.
Can we not, please?
Yeah, exactly.
You okay? I just. Ugh.
Yeah. Ugh. Somebody said duct tape before an episode. She was like, oh, I hate it. Yeah, so jumping ahead a little bit. So we talked about in the one where they go down to the planet and Khan, Khan, she starts having problems and she doesn't report it. She keeps it to herself for some reason, which is not the professional thing to do, you know?
Right. Wait, so... Oh, right. When Nuh-uh was, like, having her blackouts. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Right. Once again, I told you how much I hated that. When characters do that. It seems kind of a crutch to create tension or to create, like, for the audience type of thing. It's like... they did it again with Uhura. Because Uhura was happening to her. And yes, she had reported that she was like tired. She saw something and they went and checked her out. But then later on, when they bring the other person from the space station and like he runs off and shoots people, it just becomes murderous rampage.
Yeah.
she hears the sound but says nothing. She you can tell she's like wanting to keep it a secret. And at this point, I don't know why these characters are doing it. It doesn't even make sense. Like there's no reason why she would keep it. Like she's afraid of getting fired, or that she was doing something wrong. I mean, the only thing she's doing wrong is keeping it from it's like very important information. It's like imperative. Yeah. Because it would kind of inform the situation. It's just characters making shitty, stupid decisions. That's what I hate. That's what I think is what's pissing me off about that.
Right. Kind of along those lines is when people make their promises on the impossible. Like when she says, I'll be fine, I promise, to the same guy that she decked, and to the same guy where he was like, yeah, you're looking at things that aren't there. And she's sitting there saying, I'll be fine, I promise. Like it's one of those things where in shows, they say, we're going to get your father back or something, I promise. It's like, no, you can't, you can say, I promise we're going to do everything we can to get your father back. Like that's something you have control over.
Yeah, you're just kicking the can down the road on that one.
Right. Well, yeah. And I mean, so it was just a frustrating moment where, Kirk is saying, are you going to be okay? And she's like, I'll be fine, I promise. And it's like, you haven't been fine up to this point. Why are you thinking you can promise that now? So
yeah, it's kind of a leave me alone about this. Right. I got this.
Oh, totally.
I promise. Okay, is that enough for you? Now fuck off.
Happy now, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So so she finally tracks down the guy. What's his name? I can't remember his name. The guy who's crazy.
Ramon.
Wow, good job.
But Saul Ramon was his full name.
Why do you remember that? What's the doctor's name? What is it?
Bega, but beyond that, I don't know his first name. No, I was like, oh, that's cool. Like his name's Ramon, and then he was like Saul Ramon, and I was like, really? Like, why did they give you a first name for your last name in this episode? So.
And why did they give you two villain names?
Right.
Siler Khan bad guy names.
Is my name.
Yeah. Siler. Wow. Is that a deep cut? Did people watch Heroes?
Well,
sorry, are the people who listening did they watch Heroes?
I don't.
You think?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that too far away?
No, I don't think so. I think they got burned by Heroes just as we did.
Because the guy who plays Siler,
right, yeah.
plays Spock, so I think there's a connection there.
Yeah, and his dad is from To Kill a Mockingbird.
Right, and then Mockingbird's name was Ramon. I forgot about that. Anyway, so she has him cornered with her phaser gun, right? And he's like typing away. She's like, please just step away from the thing. What happened to stun now, ask questions later, right? Like, we can't do that now unless you have a taser. I guess they can tase you now.
Yeah.
And there's like laws and stuff. But so you can't just go or walk around tasing people if you're not doing what you tell them to do.
Right.
But in this situation where he's going to blow up the ship and you're trying to talk him down off the ledge, why are we talking people down off the ledge? Why don't we just phase him? You're not going to kill him. You're just going to incapacitate, and then you lock him in a cage and then you talk to him.
Yeah. On Enterprise, they had phasers that you could set to stun, right? Like it wasn't just there was only one setting, and so you had to be very careful with it. Like they have gradations on their phasers now, right?
Well, I think so, especially because when he escaped from sickbay and he, I guess, stabbed the doctor. I don't remember what he did. Like maybe just kind of.
He reached over and grabbed a medical tool and slashed at him. As what always happens, right? Yeah.
Right.
And then there was that other guy who looked like his torso was bisected, and they were like, "We need an emergency medic down here."
Wait, when did that happen?
When they were chasing after him, there was that one dude who was on the floor just outside the door, and that looked. I mean, again, like my lighting wasn't my lighting wasn't the best, so I may have been not seeing the image right, but it looks like there was a full slash from like rib to shoulder.
Yeah, and they're pretty gory in this because when Ramon Siler dies, when he dies and he gets, decompressed into open space, we get a full viewing of that. I mean, it looks like a cutscene from a really good video game.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I was impressed. I was impressed and kind of shocked that Star Trek, like a happy-go-lucky show like this, I guess it's not happy-go-lucky. I'm going on a lot of tangents here. I need to rewind back. There's so many like dreams within a dream in my tangent right now. But just for a second, it's not really, I just realized it's not a happy-go-lucky show. I think Pike is happy-go-lucky. He's like very casual, but some pretty dark shit happens on this show, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
Obviously. Because that's, to rewind it back, to kick out of that one, there are a lot of blood in this, and there was a lot of just, like, we got to see his face freeze off, and then he slowly die, Ramon,
Well, and there was Zombie Hammer.
Yeah, that was crazy, too, and that looked good.
Yeah.
It looked pretty good.
Yeah.
So it's pretty dark. It's getting kind of dark. But they didn't stun him.
Right, which is definitely a weird thing. Like, you do not need to threaten. I mean, unless there was some reason that she wasn't able to shoot, because she said something like, I don't want to blow us both up, so please stop.
So lame.
Right.
I'm so tired of that, especially because they were like the guy when he first escaped. Oh, that's what I was going to say. When he first escaped from sickbay, one of the officers just started shooting at him. I'm sure that wasn't to just disintegrate him. It's like, well, he tried to escape. What do you want from me? What do we have these things for? So that must have been on stun.
You might kill him. Right. Then why?
Yeah.
Why do I have this?
What are these things? Like, what is this thing? Am I using it wrong?
Should I throw it at him?
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so this is next thing that I hate about this episode. I don't want to come off as like the hater because I still love this show. I think this was a well done show. The score is pretty good in this one, gotta say. Like, they do a really good job for being kind of a intentionally over-scored show because there's music in every single scene. Well done. But anyway, on to the things I hate. Enough of that good stuff. Got enough of that. I'm still waiting for a reason that Carol Kane is on the show. Not so much Carol Kane, but her character. Like, what is her character doing? Like,
So until she started working with Una, I thought that one scene she had with Uhura was going to be her only scene in the episode where she
that'd have been great. That'd have been so much better. Because she has no effect on anything.
Right.
And I keep waiting. Maybe this is my problem. I keep having this expectation on her. I'm being unfair because I want her to be exceptional in some way. I want her to bring something to the fucking party, but she doesn't. All she does, I mean, wasn't even particularly, I mean, the only thing that she brought was like she kind of psychoanalyzed Una at the end of the show.
Right, but for no reason.
I thought we were reserving, what was the old Andorian guy, or was he Andorian or whatever, the other engineer that died?
Yeah, Hammer, yeah.
Hammer, right. I thought we were reserving that for Uhura, that all of a sudden she has this sadness for Hammer dying. I mean, I guess everybody does, but like they chose Una in this moment because that's why they made her hate Carol. It's almost like they were just giving Carol Kane business to do that wasn't anything. Like, did Carol Kane have a no technobabble contract? It's like, I will not say any of that crap, okay?
Maybe.
Like, well,
I could totally see that since she hasn't yet. But the other part of it too is it's Carol Kane. Like, it just, you're right. Like, because it's somebody that you're like, oh my gosh, Carol Kane is on Strange New World. Like, this person is on Strange New Worlds. You expect them to have some kind of importance. You know, like her part itself really isn't that important. If it was anybody else, you would just think, okay, here's a new person on the crew taking Hammer's place. You know, but because it's Carol Kane, you're like, oh, cool. What is she going to do? And so far, nothing.
Nothing. She has nothing to contribute. She doesn't even say like, well, if you looked over here, you'd notice this thing, and then all of a sudden she's the most brilliant engineer ever. Right. And they keep telling us how interesting and important she is, kind of, and there's no demonstration of it. It's just I feel like they're leading us up to something. And I don't know what
they kind of haven't. Like, all they've told us about her, about how interesting she is that she lives a really long time, which we saw when they went to the past. But even there, like we talked about, she didn't really do anything. She just happened to have the watch, and she was like, oh, yeah, I guess you could use that.
Yeah, she's not throwing around her wisdom.
Right.
Because they play her, and she even overtly says it, that I have a lot of wisdom because I've been alive for however many hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. She throws that fact around, but doesn't really have anything to add because of it. So when are they going to start doing that? Yeah. Are they just saving up all of the mojo?
The only thing that I can think, and I mean, this is episode 6, 7?
6.
Yeah, this is episode 6. So the only thing that I can think is that they're trying to like kind of what if they have an anti-Guinan, somebody who lives forever and doesn't. Well, nope, that doesn't even work because in this episode she provided insight to Una. And
that anybody could have, though. That wasn't
yes.
something that you needed. Like, that wasn't a moment where immediately, like, an anti-Guinan, like anti-good. It's like, let's say Guinan. Take her down a few notches.
Just how Guinan was like she lived forever, and so she always had that great insight to help the people discover the things about themselves in a way that wasn't telling them here's what your problem is. Or here's what you need to discover. Like she did that with Geordi. She did that with, I forget who it was.
Well, pretty much the whole crew.
Right, at some point. Yeah, that's fair. But then here she is, and she didn't have that moment with Nuh-uh. She had that moment with Una, but by blatantly telling her what her problem was, Una didn't figure it out on her own. And I guess.
Well, and I feel like her character wouldn't have waited until the end of the episode. It should have just come out and say it. Look, I know I replaced your friend. I'm sorry. Your friend is dead. I can only support you in your grief. But could we get the hell to work, please? Like, 'cause she comes off as like the sassy, old, wise person. Like, kind of the anti-Guinan. Like, Guinan was not sassy. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, yeah, she's sassy and she's wise.
Right.
And she doesn't seem to flaunt mystery. She just kind of walks around like she's kind of like you wouldn't expect her to, if you were to just look at her, to know a lot of stuff, and maybe she's playing that a little bit. It seems like that would be the obvious character thing, except she doesn't pay anything off by having this wonderful gems of advice or knowledge or instinct. There are so many times where somebody confronts Carol Kane's character with something, like you're just a space hippie, and she just smiles back.
Right.
There's just a lot of smiling back in a way. And I didn't know where that was coming from. I didn't know if it was like, I know why you're being this way to me, and I'm going to give you a chance to realize it and apologize.
Right.
But that's not exactly, because that's not what happened. Usually when you set something up like that, you pay it off. Mm-hmm. But I'm waiting. I am waiting.
Yeah.
Strange New Worlds. Why is she on the show?
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest question. Why is she on the show? And I mean, maybe it was kind of the same thing as Guinan. She was like, I love Star Trek. Please let me be on the show. And they were like, okay, we have this character who we need to fill. And she was like, that sounds great.
Yeah. And she did a great job.
Right. I mean, yeah, she's, wait, no, I'm talking about Carol Kane. Yeah.
Oh, then I wasn't.
Right. That's how I knew. Cause you're like, and she's doing a great job.
You convinced me.
Right. But no, like maybe Carol Kane got the part in the same way that Whoopi Goldberg did, where she just went to them and said, I would like this part, or I'd like to be on Star Trek. And they said, we have this part that we need filled.
I like the idea that Carol Kane walked into the writer's room. I want this part that you've been working on. I think it's really good. And they're like, okay, you got it. No problemo. Right. And then she leaves, and the head writer turns around. What the fuck is she talking about? So they had to invent a character in 15 minutes.
Well, like episode 9 of season 1 is when this happens. So they call in the actor who played Hummer, and they're like, so listen.
Carol Kane.
Right. She has this amazing part. It's yours.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question for you.
Okay.
And this might be one of your favorite parts. I don't know. But so the revelation that the noise was a communication that came like 40 minutes into the episode that Uhura has. Was that a surprise to you? Like, to me, it was like, oh, this is someone's trying to communicate with her. It's not just some random noise that she's hearing. I mean, I've seen Star Trek before. I know that this is someone trying to communicate. This happens all the time,
So because I've seen enough Star Trek and just sci-fi in general, this episode did have me guessing what it was, but that was definitely one of the options that was mulled about.
So you thought that because it seemed too obvious to you that it would be a communication, that they wouldn't do that.
Well, like it was either a communication thing, or it was like the whole thing was being a hallucination from like her first one, and it was deuterium. What was another one? It was a virus, kind of like the Naked Time, Naked Now. So like I didn't know what it was going to be, but I knew that it wasn't just the deuterium. Like,
Right.
it wasn't deuterium, and this episode was progressing in real time.
Right. It felt like, oh, this is the first time you're considering this. It didn't even occur to me that this wouldn't be the first thing you would think. It's like, oh, it seems like somebody's trying to say something to me,
Right.
But that's just me probably imposing my knowledge of stuff that, in their defense, hasn't happened yet.
Well, that, and also, like I was thinking about it with them blowing up the gas station. Like, there's no evidence, there's no indication that there was a life form. This is literally off of Uhura, who was hallucinating.
Right. Yeah. And it occurred to me, wouldn't this be interesting if we find out? It probably would have been better at the end of this episode as opposed to something that happens in later episodes, because I know the Gorn plays a role in this season. If this whole thing was a Gorn deception, that they made them destroy that thing, because they said it was
would be cool.
They said it could be problematic for the Gorn.
Right.
And so wouldn't it be great if that was if she did just destroy this this thing for no reason? I mean, I guess she was not, she was confident for a good reason because she was being deceived, but not for the reason she thought it was.
Right.
Also, in that moment where she turns and we see the fully reconstructed Hemmer, I didn't like the way they played that moment. It kind of bugged me where he just smiles and he's like fully like you could have done it where he's just standing there like as Hemmer again, that's enough. But then he smiles. I'm like, okay, that's taken it an extra step to make sure like that she knows. It's like comforting. It's like, hey,
right,
you were right. But then he starts nodding. We didn't need the nod.
Right.
It was we understood. It was
and
no
the
longer
swelling of the triumphant music. Yeah.
Like,
thumbs
the fact
up.
he's not a zombie anymore, like he's not regressing from, like that's not scary
And her
anymore.
parents and brother come walking on, looking at her.
Yeah, it bugged me. It bugged me that they felt that they needed to have him do all three of those things.
Sure. Yeah, I get it.
Anyway, jumping back a little bit. So they broke the cardinal rule of Star Trek in Technobabble. And that rule was, so they're all kind of, Uhura is with Sam and Kirk, and I think Pike is not there.
Right.
And they've kind of figured out what's happening. She kind of goes through this whole kind of sophisticated, complicated teller technobabble where she says, they're using my dreams as, like, they're using my bad dreams, my good dreams, all of my thoughts, all of my feelings to try and communicate with me. And then she says, like, vocabulary. And the rule is you have one character do the technobabble, then you have another character.
Right.
And Kirk, James Kirk, was primed for this because he's kind of like not technical, but smart and sassy. And so he could have been like, you mean like a vocabulary? Like, that's what you do. That's the Star Trek way.
Right. Well, and then she even gave the analogy later when she says, you're going to blow out the receiver. And like that's where she has the revelation.
Right. She's like Janeway all of a sudden.
Right. I hope not.
No.
I hope not. I hope that she does not become Janeway of being the Jane of all trades and being able to solve everything and provide the layman's analogy and correct the person who's wrong. I hope that Uhura does not become that.
Well, I think that hopefully this was just, they felt like this was her story, and so she needs to do all the work, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I could also see that too. But you're right. Like, it should have been with her saying that and then somebody else saying, like, vocabulary. And either her agreeing or just saying, and if that's the case, and just moving on with her explanation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't do that.
But they had a good opportunity, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
They didn't do it. What do we say? But they didn't do that.
Yeah, but they didn't do that.
Okay, and so they rescue the people, the aliens, and they smile and nod and handshake and wave and flash them their tits, and then they go away.
They're molecular tits. Yeah.
Molecular tits.
So one of the other parts to this episode that I thought was part of the hallucinations, and it's another reason why I kind of didn't think that it was an alien race, was everybody was so aggressive in this episode. Like Sam and James were totally antagonistic towards each other. Una and Carol Kane are totally antagonistic to each other.
Right.
And so it felt like there was something that was impacting people, and just Uhura and Ramon were feeling it more than everybody else. But that didn't turn out to be the case.
Yeah. I mean, at least there was conflict a little bit. At least there was people who don't like each other. I'm okay with that. I mean, I agree with you. And even Uhura at the beginning was not very nice to Kirk, who was obviously a superior officer.
Right. Well,
I mean, I guess.
And she wasn't nice to Carol Kane either. She's like, why are you avoiding me? Why are you not talking to me? She's like, I've just been busy. She's like, well, that's not true. And she's like, hi, welcome to the Enterprise.
I know. That good enough?
Right.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. That never gets resolved either.
No.
It's such a strange exchange to have.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not going to in some way pay that off, I guess. Was there a connection to that for some reason? Or was it just more screen time?
There seemed to be kind of the same thing that was pissing Una off, was the fact that this person replaced Hemmer, who was their friend.
Right. I guess they didn't explicitly ever say that.
Not for Uhura, no. But
Yeah.
the fact that they did it for Una, you can piece that together. But you're right. Like, there should have been a moment where she saw Carol Kane later on and either genuinely was pleasant to her and said, you're doing a great job as the engineer, or apologized for her behavior earlier and said, we're lucky to have you, or something.
Right. Yeah. Or make there be something that ties it in, I guess, to her grief for Hemmer, that isn't just her not being nice to her. Because anyway, maybe they just needed another scene with Carol Kane where she wasn't technobabbling.
Right. Yeah, she's like, I have to be in at least 4 scenes every episode, and I'm not going to do any technobabble. They're like, that really
this
does
is
hinder,
Trek,
right? Does hinder what you can do on the show. Because I mean, even there, she was like, I'll have it back up and running. Give me 4 hours, or something like that. Like, she didn't say anything of, I need to reverse the polarity of these conduits.
Right. It would be cool too. Is that that's a great way to prime that she's just this genius. And she just goes and does it. She's not your typical engineering nerd, which would be Geordi, where Geordi just has all the answers technologically and technically that he just kind of spouts them off.
Well, yeah, he kind of thinks aloud. Yeah. Well, yeah, it would almost be nice if she just understood. Maybe that's why she doesn't do technobabble, because she doesn't know the technobabble. She's like, they're like, how'd you fix it? And she's like, I fixed it. I don't. Right. What?
Yeah, my experience is so good that I just I can intuit my way through any problem. That's my
right. And that's why she works alone, because she can't tell people how to help her.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great. See, look, we fixed it. Right.
But they haven't done that yet.
Right. Maybe that's coming. Maybe they're priming us. Maybe this is what we asked for, like multi-episode arcs. How about that?
Right? Yeah. It would be great if there was a beautiful payoff at the end. I don't think there is, but I don't know for sure.
I'm sure she's going to start playing a bigger role in the show as we inch closer toward the...
well, and that's the other part of, why is this just becoming a shit on Carol Kane episode? But they've had so many episodes where she has been a part of the episode and she hasn't done anything.
Yeah, they're using up all the goodwill and juice that she has in terms of something... Like when Guinan came on...
Yeah, definitely.
We know there's going to be something interesting that's going to happen. She's going to talk.
Right. It's a great moment. It's a great payoff. There's something there. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. And what's even more fantastic about that is Guinan, Whoopi Goldberg is Guinan. Guinan is not Whoopi Goldberg. Right. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Except in Picard.
Right.
She's definitely not Guinan.
Right. It's kind of interesting. Because Carol Kane, kind of the same thing. Did she even have her accent in this episode?
Yeah, a little bit.
Did she? Okay.
Yeah. I guess they don't build that into the subtitles, do they?
Well, no. I mean, after the first 20 minutes, and that's when the sound was on, because I was done dropping off the kid.
What would be funny is you turned off the sound but put on the visual description.
Right. So, oh my gosh, those subtitles must fly by.
There's so much to be said. You're just reading a novel of the episode, basically.
Right. All right, so I do want to back up just a little bit. So, since we're jumping around anyway, the scene when she punched herself and it wound up being Kirk, and then he kind of tells her to lay down or get some rest, and he's like, no punching anybody until I get back. And she's like, all right, but the moment you get back.
That's a good point. She didn't bring that up, did she?
She did not. Yeah. No, she brought up the stupid cookie. But
I did feel like it was kind of a big question mark. If they were trying to create kind of a love triangle between Uhura, and Kirk, because they did have that moment. That it was one moment where there's sort of they make Kirk and Log make eye contact and kind of like, hey, this is the first time this is happening. I'm seeing if there's like not Una, is trying to figure out like, is there sparks like last time? There you are. It's like kind of an emotional moment, and like Kirk was like, what?
Right. Well, it's got to be kind of a little hard for La'an because she's meeting this guy who she had feelings for, who has told her all these things about himself. So she's got to suffer through him telling her the same stories all over again.
No, they would be different stories because of the universe.
Oh,
that
you're
she
right.
was
You're
in.
right. Like his brother died, so he's going to totally have different stories. Yeah, that's fair. Never mind.
And she can't even prove that it happened by saying, "Oh, well, you told me that when you were 6 years old." That your dad. She can't do that.
Yeah.
So she's totally on an island.
Right.
But that was all we got. I think that was enough. I'm glad they at least acknowledged that there was a history there, that they didn't kind of dwell on it. But I didn't know if they were trying to set something up between Uhura and Kirk, and I don't think they were because of the
I don't think
last
so
scene.
either. Yeah.
So the plot is resolved, and then we have this kind of meeting of Uhura, Kirk, and Spock. And it was kind of played as like a moment. I'm glad they didn't do what they do in Picard and like play all the themes because something happened.
Well, that and also like they have a little bit of dialogue, and Kirk's like, I think you and I are going to get along just fine.
Yeah, I'm so glad they didn't do that.
No, but they also kind of did, and that's what makes Strange New Worlds so great. Like Kirk was like, I don't know what that was, but that was, and Spock comes up and says frustrating, and like Spock already has beef with Sam, so it was nice that Kirk was able to already have kind of a bonding element with Spock, even though it's not really something that they're going to be like, oh yeah, my brother's the worst,
Right.
It was a great subtle way of showing that like they are going to get along and have things in common without playing it up like they do on Picard.
Well, they said, I think we're going to get along just fine by having them get along just fine.
Right.
It's
crazy how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. But the moment that I loved, I felt like it was the moment of the episode. It just felt like I wish every moment was like this with characters. But this is why you have discrete characters, and because there's not callbacks but just context. Is when Spock cleans up after Kirk.
Right. Yeah, he just picks up the glass. Totally.
Yeah, it's like oh yeah, there's this guy that you remember from the last episode, right?
Right.
That other thing that happened with him is like that's still around. He's still him, and Kirk and Sam are related, and they do the same things, and like this is like it's all kind of connected, and it kind of has the rhyming aspect of it. All kind of rhymes. I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, why can't all of the exchanges be in some way that thing? Where actions tell the story as opposed to, as you said, I think we're going to get along just fine,
Right. Yeah. It is very frustrating to jump back and forth between Picard and Strange New Worlds, where Strange New Worlds, by and large, for the most part, respects their audience and understands that they are going and believes that they are going to understand the message that they are trying to convey. And Picard thinks that we are a bunch of idiots and needs to hammer us over the head with it over and over.
Right. Yeah. That's why we like it better than Picard. Although Picard is growing on us.
Oh yeah. It only we're on episode 27, I think, next.
Yeah.
27 out of 30 total. So, we've watched almost 90% of it. And at about the 80% mark, we were like, okay, this is starting to get good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I liked the whole moment of the pullback when you have the three characters who have come together, and they're kind of showing that where we're going to end up in a way.
Yeah.
on a much smaller ship with much smaller quarters.
Right. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe Kirk comes in and he's like, "Oh, it's too spacious in here."
It's too big in here. They have a jazz club on the Enterprise.
Yeah, but I mean, also in the original series on the quarters, like, well, first off, they had a stage in 10 Forward because Riker was always playing his trombone up there in public. But
that still felt like it was on the ship for some reason. It didn't feel like it was a room. It felt like it was a compartment on the ship.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But good episode. I'm trying to think. Is this a proper Star Trek episode?
So that kind of goes back to my original comment about how it's unique in Star Trek, but it's not unique to Star Trek. Is that how I mean to say it? Yeah, like this kind of thing where there is an alien that's trying to communicate and presenting itself in a confusing or terrifying manner I don't think is unique to this episode. But I can't think of any other series that does that sort of thing, sci-fi or otherwise, where this outside essence is trying to communicate, and in the process, it doesn't understand how to communicate in a way that we understand, and so it throws people off, and it makes us feel like we're being threatened or hurt in some way.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same concept as the Geordi episode.
Right, interface? Yeah, totally.
Yeah, interface. And I think this happens to Troy at a certain point where somebody's trying to communicate with her.
Well, there's definitely the hallucinations that she has, like right outside the nacelle chamber. There was that murder mystery episode.
Yeah, like this is where somebody's trying to communicate in a non-traditional fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens all the time. But
yeah,
I'm trying to think, is it novel?
I'm willing to say that it is unique and novel to Star Trek enough for me to check that box as saying, yes, this is unique and novel, at least for me.
Okay.
And then the same thing with, obviously that element of sci-fi, somebody trying to communicate, like that was absolutely required for the plot. So those two are done. But the ethical and moral dilemma, do you have one?
I'm trying to think, was there ever a dilemma? I mean, I guess Pike faces a dilemma. Do I believe Uhura or...
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
But it's not like it's a huge moment. I mean, we knew what he was going to do.
Well,
He's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I mean, he kind of did. Like he didn't believe her pretty much the entire episode. And then even when she was like, we cannot start the gas station, he was like, we already did. Sorry. And
it was a little convenient too, where it's like, well, we can't shut it down. It's like, oh, well, there's bigger implications there if you can't shut it down. I guess they handled that with saying like, oh, I think Ramon did worse damage to this than we thought he did.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so you're just going to let it run? Was the idea? It's like, well, let's just let it run and see what happens.
Right.
Let's see how long we can get this thing going.
Yeah.
But it is a little convenient. But yeah, I guess, I mean, I'll buy it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Genuine Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
Ding.
And did you like it? Despite all of the tropes of hallucinations and...
Despite all of the things I hated about it, yeah, I thought it was pretty good.
Right. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, did you enjoy the show?
Yeah, I liked it. I actually enjoy it. Like, I like the way it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way they handle, like, the set. I kind of loved the set for the space station. You could kind of see the seams where the set ended and the matte painting, started.
Right, the green screen.
You could see it, but I was like okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
I was okay. It almost was. I actually thought they were in the nacelle room because it kind of has a similar thing where it just goes on forever in the background.
Right. Yeah.
And it begs the questions like, should this be glass? It just seems dangerous.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with the engineering room, which we haven't seen. I feel like since Hemmer, maybe we have, but there's like a guardrail that's maybe waist high to,
right, yeah.
to this cavernous room.
It's a death trap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's when the engineers were like, maybe we shouldn't make these ships so big.
Right. Right. Well, and I mean, maybe it's one of the first things that Kirk does, because if you think about the difference between Strange New Worlds and Enterprise, or not Enterprise, the original series, like there actually is a glass wall between, the engineering controls and the warp engines. And maybe Kirk he walks through and he's like, well, when I'm captain, that's the first thing to change.
Yeah.
All these rooms are way too big, and that definitely needs more protection.
Well, and the same thing
That's
with the bridge. When when Uhura is having that moment, that hallucination where the bridge kind of it cracks, they're like, oh no. And he doesn't say like, try and get off the ship right now, get off the ship. He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that. He just kind of stares at it. It's like, is it gonna hold? Nope. And then it cracks.
I mean, being a hallucination, they're gonna do whatever her brain tells them to do.
Right.
It's not Pike actually reacting.
But we didn't know that.
I love the idea. Well, the moment Spock flew out, like you knew that was not real.
I thought that he would he'd like crawl across the bridge or across the outer hull.
That was most unfortunate.
God, that'd be the moment where we stop watching the show, I think.
But I just love the idea of like the screen cracking, and there's like a dust cloud where Pike was once sitting, and he's just clamoring to the turbo lift.
A literal dust cloud.
Yeah.
Or his clothes are there.
Right. Yeah.
But they kind of go through that, and that it shouldn't be glass. It should be like transparent aluminum or something like that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't crack like glass.
No, it wouldn't. It would bend the way that metal does. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Which
So F.
right.
F. Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
Don't you? Have you ever seen Voyage Home?
But again, it's a hallucination, so it's going to do whatever her brain thinks.
That's true. And she's not very good. She doesn't know what transparent aluminum is.
Right.
She's like, I thought it was glass. That's not glass?
Yeah. I mean, they probably don't teach that in the basics of Starfleet. Like, once you go into your specialized fields, that's when they would probably start talking about that. But I don't think the communications officer needs to know what elements make up the screen.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
I guess that's true.
So, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, what are we watching next?
Picard, season 3, episode 7. Is that right? Yeah.
7. We get to see Data, I suspect.
I mean, it'd stand to reason since we saw him in the last episode. I
mean, they wouldn't do that like a Carol Kane.
Wait, what the hell? I don't have to continue watching. Oh, there we go. There it is. So for season 3, episode 7, crippled, cornered, and out of options, Picard stages a gambit to trap Vadic and reveal her true motive. A gamble that puts the Titan in the crosshairs and forces Picard and Beverly to question every moral code they've ever held. So I think it'll check off the third criteria.
Boring. Such a boring blurb. They couldn't think of a third word that started with a C that meant what they said.
Right.
The third thing. Crippled, cornered, and cavalier.
What does it say?
What was the
Crippled,
third
cornered,
part?
And out of options.
Out of options. What's the word? What's the C word? We can come with it like in less than a minute. We can do this. What is it? What's the word? Out of options. Well, it's going to seem like half a minute, under a minute, because we're going to edit it that way.
Cracked, careless. Those are ones I'm coming up with.
Colluded. No, out of options. What does that mean? That's kind of cornered in a way. Like it kind of is.
Right. So
You could just say crippled and cornered.
yeah, cornered is one that it gives for no options.
If they just said crippled and out of options, that's okay. Crippled and cornered.
Right, crippled and cornered. Yeah.
That's fine. We've solved it. We made it better. You're supposed to trim the fat.
Seriously.
Well, it's all written by AI anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been Paul.
I've been Jonathan.
It's become like calling shotgun, you know?
Right. Well, I've been waiting for you to do it because I know which one I'm doing.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I feel confident this time.
And this has been The Measure of an Episode.
But you already knew that. It's John
Who was
Walsh
that?
from Unsolved Mysteries.
Wow. Would have never guessed that.
Right? No, that's not who it was.